Yeah, because we'll be.
Good afternoon. I would like to call our special call meeting work session to order, Monday, August the 8th. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. And Mr. Holmes, haven't heard from him, so I assume he's on the way. Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Parker. Ms. Caldwell, would you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. And next, we have a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, we have just one agenda item for this afternoon leading up to our regular board meeting. And it's a follow-up on our discussion from work session on our budget. And as Dr. Locklear and I were talking, we felt like to just get some more details out there and to go over some of the questions that was asked from our work session specifically, that this would just give us a heads up leading into our meeting this afternoon. And certainly this item is on our agenda, so we will revisit during our regular meeting this afternoon. Dr. Locklear.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. Charlie, you can go ahead and pull up the attachment if you don't mind. Yes, ma'am. This is as we had the board was discussing from our work session last week, the recommendation that the staff and I brought surrounding ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding. And as we got to the end of our budget year, seeing about $2.3 million in savings from what was forecasted, and there was a recommendation on reallocating those funds into three areas, which I'll hit on a little bit more as we work our way through the chart. But there was discussion from the board and wanted to see that in the context of our full budget. And so what I've tried to do for you today is bring a follow-up from what I shared with you in July, which was an update on our Moore County Board of Commissioners budget that they approved and what we were allocated from that, $3.45 million in recurring funding, additional funding, and how that accommodates your budget that you had approved as part of your request to the commissioners. And so this expands on that chart, does a little color coding on that chart, and also adds in a few bits of additional information that was part of the discussion. So I think it might be helpful just to kind of dive in, if I could review that chart with you, and then see if you have any questions from the chart, and then, of course, open it up for discussion and working through questions as best we can. So as we look at this, try to put this information all on one page, and I appreciate our finance team and of course, as I've noted before, Mr. Cox still in the background helping from time to time, and certainly he assisted in my efforts to confirm and validate information. And so as we look at this, the colors represent the green, and that column represent the request, the board-approved budget request. That's what the green highlighted column represents. If we work into the kind of next color that we see there, the orangish salmon color, if you will. Probably mispronounced that word, but I'm sorry, that color. But that orangish color there, that represents really the allotment from, or the allocation from our county commissioners and what that current expense is able to accommodate in the board's base budget. The light tan color there represents a combination of that county funding and utilizing fund balance to accommodate that base budget need. And then the other color that you'll see there is blue. Blue designates that being from our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding source. So that's what that blue indicates there. So each column, the first column, as I noted, represents the board-approved request. The second column represents the approved county budget, the allocation from the county. And then the third combines that allocation with the impact of the state budget, which became, the revised biennial state budget became law on July 11th. You may recall we were sitting here in our meeting at the end of the meeting, and Mr. Schwartz said, by the way, the governor just signed the budget into law. And so on July 11th, that revised budget that did raise the salary and benefits for our employees, it raised the increase that folks were going to get in those salary and benefits, so that in turn impacts our budget. And so that revised amount is in that column there. So I'll just work through that as efficiently as I can. If we look there, you see that the certified staff local supplement step was an impact of $210,000, and from that color coding, that's being addressed through the current expense or the allocation from the Board of Commissioners, that additional $3.45 million. Administrative staff salary increase, $60,000, again, from that color addressed from current expense. Local certified salary pay increase of 4%, including the benefits to match the state increase, is $525,000 from current expense. The compressed local classified salary pay increase, calling this raises to a minimum of $15 an hour, or 4% above that if you're already receiving $15 an hour, and that's including benefits. That's an impact of $1.3 million being accommodated from the current expense. Charter school flow-through increase, $400,000 is what that's projected at through current expense. Utility rate increases and inflationary costs and supplies and materials both at $100,000 addressed through current expense. When we get to that prior year fixed costs not covered through recurring revenue, meaning salaries that we've taken care of through the pandemic through non-recurring revenue sources, that is $1.4 million. That would be covered from both what is remaining from the current allocation from the county and fund balance, is how that would have to be accommodated. So that's a total of $4,095,000. And if you look at the note at the bottom of that chart, you'll see that it notes that it require $1,055,500 in fund balance to meet the board-approved fixed costs and new fixed costs as a result of the state-approved budget from July 11th.
What was that, where was that number?
That's at the bottom of that chart. It's $1,055,500.
Can you point to that? Oh, I see, never mind.
It's at the middle of that first chart, the bottom of that first chart, the note.
It
Under
wasn't
the
on
third
this
black
list.
line.
That's what was
Yeah.
thrown
Under the third
Sorry, we
one?
should have highlighted that.
in. That's all right.
It's right there, Mr.
Oh, I see, I see now, yes.
And that incorporates the next fixed cost or base budget item that we talked some about at the board meeting. Mr. Levy brought up, and we were noting that there's no longer a digital learning fund that's rolled into that additional $3.45 million that we were allocated for recurring costs from our county commissioners, but we carry with us a commitment on current digital lease obligations of $330,000. And so that's something we're obligated to pay. Then that would be paid from fund balance. And so then we move our way down into, so those are the base budget fixed costs. I've noted it's going to take a little over $1 million, almost 1.1 in fund balance to accommodate those fixed costs.
So you said the $3.45 million includes the $750,000?
That is correct.
All right, and that was already committed to refreshing, am I correct?
That was already committed to our digital learning. If you go overall, we received an increase in the county of $4.1 million. But you have to take away the $750 because the total operational increase is $3.45 because that was taken away from the total funding.
Okay, so the 3.45 does not include the 750.
It does. I'm not trying to confuse you, I'm just trying to make sure I'm giving
What you
all
said
the-
was 4.1, but you have to take away 750.
The county increased our operational funding by 4.1 million,
Right?
but they rolled digital learning from into that, so into current operations. And so,
So what you have is 3.45 million plus a $750,000 digital learning fund.
no,
If-
sir.
If I used it in old terms.
No, we don't have that. I apologize for confusing you. There's two different things. There's, when you look at, our current operations, that's the money we have to spend, and that's the current expense that we have to spend on fixed costs. That 3.45 million includes the 750, so that's all part of that 3.45 million.
So where's the 700, so where's
Got
the 4.1?
eliminated. The 4.1 is the total, when you total all of our funding all across all columns, the total operational funding, when you bring in capital, you bring in all the different funding sources that the county gives us, is the 4.1. So if you take the 3.4 and you add our capital, which is 800,000, that's where you come up with that.
And that capital is the digital learning fund, because the digital learning fund is a capital fund,
It's-
correct?
No, digital was separate. It's been
Separate from
eliminated, rolled into
No,
current operations.
no, I understand. What I'm trying to figure out, and I still haven't figured it out, is we originally said $750,000 of that digital learning fund was going to refresh the cost of digital devices, okay? That money was rolled into our operating fund. But I want to take that out of our operating fund, imaginary, okay? And I want to know what's left.
What's left?
Because we've already said we already committed the $750,000 by a vote of this board to the refreshing of the digital learning. And it seems to me that that's where you get the difference between the 3.45 and the 4.1. Now, I could be totally wrong, and someone tell me where I'm wrong.
Let me ask this question.
No. I
there's
want to hear
nothing
his
with
answer.
that.
I want to hear the answer. I don't mean, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine, but-
But I really want to hear the answer.
I think I have the answer for you both.
No, I want it from Dr. Locklear. I mean,
Okay, go ahead.
You may know, but I got to get it from Dr. Locklear.
The best way I can explain it is when you tally all of the funding that the county gives us, we got a net increase, that's including our capital funding, that goes to our maintenance costs, those types of costs. It's 4.1 overall that we got. Part of that funding that we used to get separately, that wasn't part of our operational funding, was a $750,000 fund for digital learning. That got eliminated and rolled into current operations,
Let
current
me correct you.
expense.
It didn't get eliminated. It just got put into our main bank account. But it didn't get eliminated. It was always there and always will be there.
Well, let's say it a different way then.
Okay, all right? Tell
That
me.
750,000 got rolled into the overall increase on current operations. And what I'm laying out to you from this top part of the chart is we have base budget, fixed costs, salary and benefits is most of that. Base budget, fixed costs that are accommodated from that current operations
What
funding.
I
of
want to
3.4
know
million.
is, making the assumption that we've committed to $750,000 to the refreshing of digital devices, how much money do we have left from the in the operating fund, which is an increase over last year? And it seems to me that number is $3.45 million.
It's not. That 3.45 includes, you could say it includes the $750,000. But, so now,
Fine,
we got,
okay,
just
all right,
try to make it
let me
as
let you
simple
go.
as possible.
Let me let you go ahead, because I have to disagree with you, but I'm a little bit scared to disagree with you, because because you certainly know more about this budget than I will ever know. But I truly believe that we are double counting that $750,000.
So let me ask the question a different way. Charlie, can you enlarge the screen, please? So when you look at the green of what we ask, and then you look at the 3.45 million, Dr. Locklear, is that what you're saying that we got from the county commissioners? The up on the screen, 3.45?
Yes.
Okay, so we got 3.45 million from the county commissioners. So then we take the 3.45 million and subtract 750,000, right? To take out the Chrome dollars.
If you wanted to look at it that way, you could.
But I mean,
So where does
What we currently have a $330,000 commitment to digital learning refreshes that the board had previously approved and the Board of Commissioners approved, and we entered into agreement to have a commitment on.
and that's under
And that
fund
used to be
balance up
paid.
there.
That used to be paid from that separate account.
Right.
That wasn't part of our current operations.
Right.
Now, it has to be paid from it has to be paid from current operations or fund balance.
Okay,
But this leads into my question. The $330,000 for the digital fund, how many year commitment is that? I mean, this is,
At least 3 more year
okay,
commitment
so it's
on
gonna
that.
be
So it's
3
over
more
$1 million.
years at $330,000.
Okay. but,
Well, maybe that'll help.
getting back to the 3.4, I think the best way it is just, if you say that we got 3.45 million from the county commissioners, and within that, we back out the 750,000, right? For the digital, then the remaining dollars left really is what we've got to spend. Is that right?
Let me say it a different way.
Okay,
And this
say
is
it a
where,
different way.
this is where I'm.
Please account for the 4.1 million.
Sure. We had an overall increase of $4.1 million from the county. When you look at the overall increase, when you tally up current operations all the way across.
That's what I want to work from. I want to work from the $4.1 million increase in the county budget. And I want to look at our priorities and use that $4.1 million to take care of our priorities. $750,000 will be refreshing digital devices. I don't know. But I want to start with the $4.1 million of an increase that we got from the county and count down. I don't want to start from the 375.
When you look at overall the end result, we used to get $750,000 that we were able
And
to
we
add
still
into
got it.
our purchasing power.
We still got it. We just got it and was just put in our main account instead of our separate account. They could have put it in a separate account, except that, and I'm gonna say this, and I know I shouldn't say it, but I think it's true, and I think the public should know. That $750,000 was put in a separate account because it was a way to not give charters a portion of the money, because it was capital, okay, and not operating. So the county
what do you base
commissioners,
that on?
so the county commissioners took the $750,000, put it into the operating expenses so that the charters would get a portion of it. That's what happened.
What do you base that upon, that assertion? That it was an attempt by the commissioners to circumvent the charter schools?
Well, actually, it wasn't an attempt by the commissioners, it was an attempt by the board.
I can answer that.
Well, no,
I
I'd
can
like to hear
an-
Bob answer it first, though. What are you
Well,
basing it on?
I've talked to some people from the Charter Schools Association. I've talked to one board member from the charter schools who said, I knew it all the time. And I've also talked to some other people. So it's not a secret.
So I can,
So,
It must have been, because it would have been a secret from those of us serving on the board.
Well, I'm not-
Although
because-
that
because I'm
was
gonna tell you-
established prior to my time on the board, I
So,
believe.
because I'm going to tell you, what have I been talking about the past couple of times? About the $40,000 that I said, we're gonna get the 750,000 less the 40,000, which has to go to the charters. The difference, the only difference in that $750,000, and the reason why it was placed in the operating fund, was to give the charters a portion of the money, and they're getting that approximately $40,000. That's what's going on. And if you don't know that, well, that's just true.
Let's get back to our budget discussion. So Charlie, go back to our executive summary. And then
Wait.
we'll go back there if we need to.
Madam Chair, before we continue, I have a question for Dr. Locklear because he may want to restate something.
Okay.
Dr. Locklear, if I understood you correctly, you just stated that the board previously approved and based upon our previous approval that the central office has signed documents obligating us to this technology refresh.
No, sir. I'm referring to past years.
Okay.
Lease
Thank you for
purchases.
clarifying. Okay.
The lease purchase that the board approved in May, as I discussed last week, that was approved, the lease purchase. Any lease purchase past 3 years required to go to our Board of Commissioners, get them approve it as well. And when we discovered in the budget process that the Board of Commissioners and Wayne County Manager is looking at rolling the digital learning into current operations, I halted that process. I wanted us to know where our budget came out,
Right.
and I felt like we might need a different strategy to figure out how to refresh our Chromebooks for grades 2 through 5.
Yeah, that's why I asked for clarification. So no documents have been signed on that.
We have not moved forward with any purchase,
that was
nor
my
a lease
understanding.
purchase. The
Right.
board did approve us to move forward with a lease
Right.
purchase, but I felt I was obligated to pause that process of not knowing exactly how we pay for that lease purchase. And I wanted us to make sure we had a good strategy to accomplish that.
Right.
Madam
So,
Chair?
yes, sir.
Let me respond to Bob's comment. With that digital fund we have was not established to keep stuff in the charter schools. I was here when we did it. We did it when we started using the technology, so what Bob said is not true.
Well, I've
Charter
got
schools
to
never-
tell.
Let's go back
Charter schools
to,
never came up.
let's go
in
back
our
to our
discussion.
executive summary, if you don't mind.
think I'm the only
If
one
you
here.
look
There we
at Dr. Locklear's bullet item, where, Bob, to your point, he has that an increase in operational funding by 4.15 million. Okay, and then under there, he has the statement about the digital. So if we can just not say eliminate, but just subtract 750 from the 4.1,
That's fine.
that's
That's great.
basically where we are.
If that is where we are, then I am very satisfied.
And is that not where we are? Once you, obviously, to your point, you're saying that it was eliminated. But if we pull out the 750 from the 4.15, then it gets us down to what we have left to work with, right?
Essentially, yes,
Okay,
ma'am. And
okay.
we have obligations on that 750. What I was trying to describe from this, and at that point, Mr. Cox was still with us, what we were trying to describe from this is that while the gross increase of 4.5, we used to have separate 750. So
Exactly,
it would have been
exactly.
4.9.
Exactly.
If we would have maintained the 750.
Yeah.
And so your net increase overall was 3.45. So
Right,
that's what we were
okay.
trying
So-
to communicate with that. Obviously, I didn't do a very good job of that
What
overall.
I don't want to
Yeah.
happen is I don't want to take that 3.45
Yeah.
and then subtract $750,000
No, we're not
for
doing that.
digital learning.
No.
That's the only thing I don't want to happen. Now I know we have $3.1 million to $3.45 million to work with to deal with our priorities, whatever those priorities are.
Right.
And I know that there's a myriad of preferences.
Right. David?
So just 2 quick points, just based upon this discussion. So the only issue that I have was I understand the math. The only issue I have with subtracting the 750,000 out is it presupposes that this board wants to, in fact, spend $750,000 on that technology. Why we're denying the people who are going to be working on that technology a decompression of their salary. So it's beans or bullets or people,
Yeah.
right? So the only, I have 2 points, so it presupposes that we don't want to put that $750,000 back on the, I don't know, that's just my only issue with it.
Okay.
And then to Ms. Carter's question, I can answer that. Computers, laptops, Chromebooks are not capital expenses. Capital expenses are not shared, county-level capital expenses are not shared with charter schools. Only operational expenses, the charter schools get their pro rata share. So, regardless of motivation, and I'll take everyone at their word, although I believe there was some scheming, it might not have been scheming on the board, but the fact of the matter is that technology was miscategorized as a capital expense, denying charter schools their legal fair share when in fact they were not capital expenses. And the reason I know this, and Bob was alluding to this, I've had several conversations with Linda Lynn Cockadellis, who's in charge. She lives down off Midland Road. She is in charge of the charter school, the North Carolina Charter School Association, and there are charter schools that are suing their local school boards over this exact same issue. So in fact, the county commissioners did us a favor by preventing a lawsuit against Moore County schools. Now, our charter schools have been gracious enough and they've not threatened a lawsuit, but I can tell you that in other school districts have tried to pull a scheme that looks an awful lot like this, where they take operational expenses and they disguise it as capital expenses. And it's been proven in court that that was done to not share the wealth with the charter schools. So we're not saying that was anyone's motivation, but that little scheme has been pulled off in other districts and is currently being litigated.
And
Okay,
by
thank
the
you.
way, let me also say, I was at the county commissioners meeting where, and I cannot remember who said it, whether it was a member of the board or whether it was the superintendent at the time, who said specifically, now that is capital expenses, isn't it? And the county commissioners said, yes, it is. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've, you know,
Well, we know
that's
it.
what's,
We
that's
know
what's
it's
going on.
Dr.
We know it's not
Locklear,
Actually have a
if,
question.
okay.
We're supposed to
okay, Stacy,
Just to reiterate here, you said we got 4.1, correct? But and I'm bad at math, so David, please calculate this for me. But when I subtract 750,000, I get 3,350,000. So we're short 100,000.
It's 4.15.
That's why 4 point. Okay.
Rounding.
on the, from the executive
Yeah.
summary up there,
says-
4.150.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's where it's
Okay.
coming from. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Locklear, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Just so make sure we get through the chart to have some more time for
Okay.
discussion and questions. If you wouldn't mind, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Going back to the, Charlie wouldn't mind pulling that chart back up.
Okay.
Just and I want to reiterate, if you look at that top half of the chart, that 3.45 million is accommodating those base budget needs that were in the board's original request that was approved. So that's where that additional reoccurring funding is accommodating those impacts, those fixed costs, those base budget needs. And so when you start working your way down past that into our board priorities that the board had set as additional priorities, it was another $3.6 million that the board was requesting from our Board of Commissioners. You can see how we're looking at having to accommodate those priorities, or what might be potential ways that we accomplish those as we continue to working. And you look at reducing class size, right now there isn't anything specifically addressed to accommodate that at this time. When we look at establishing the Connect Academy standalone school, again, as presented last week, looking to accomplish that through ESSER savings, through that $2.3 million. That's of connecting the Connect Academy, that's that blue color. We look at the counselor at Cranes Creek, its potential through ADM increase from the state and their allotments, because they are projecting us to grow this year. We would get potentially another counselor allotment but if not, we'd accomplish that through fund balance. You look at decompressing the classified salary scale, which was a big impact item in the approved budget request. We are in the process of looking at that, as I noted to you in July, of how we recalibrate decompression. We maintain the integrity of the scale, the steps, both by grade and by experience, and we look at doing that in such a fashion that doesn't impact us at that rate of $2.7 million. In process of that, I hope to bring you back more detail on that in September, and it may be that the board might look at trying to accomplish that this year through fund balance, although that ends up giving you a recurring cost that we then have to accommodate moving forward.
So
So,
the
Dr.
total-
Lockley.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask the?
Yes, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay, so, as we look at this, the digital lease, that is already obligated, the 330,000. And so that, at this point, that's where we are with lease obligations, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then when you look down that same column, we've got the counselor that you indicated that it may take care of itself through growth and ADM allotment.
Not, you'd have to accomplish it through fund balance.
Okay, so when would we know that, whether or not the growth would allow us for that position?
Once we get final allotments from the state, and they're part of sending those allotments out right now, we would know if that accommodates that, or we need to accomplish it through fund balance.
So is that before school, after school starts?
That can be into the school year.
Okay, thank you. Now, Bob.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So we have 3.45 million from the county after the after the digital learning is subtracted. And how much do we have from the ESSER savings total?
2.3 million.
2.3. So what we have is roughly 5.715.
Roughly. I didn't
To-
add that up
to-
in my head that quick, but I
Well,
trust you.
okay, I'm not holding you to exact dollars and cents, but what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, now we have some priorities. Now let's look at what we can do with the money we have, and then we can make intelligent choices. That's all I'm trying to figure out. So I'm looking.
Yes.
Roughly $5.715 million.
And so the bottom of the chart identifies, just to your point, Mr. Levy, the bottom of the chart identifies the recommended non-recurring priorities, which we brought to you from that ESSER savings, of how to spend that 2.3 million. This is our recommendation, my recommendation, of how we spend that 2.3 million based on these priorities that I have as superintendent along with the staff. Again, going back to that state requires letters training and providing a stipend for that. The grade 2 through 5 Chromebook refresh, just an outright purchase. We wouldn't be getting as many devices as the original.
Hold it. The Chromebook money was part of the $750,000. We've already subtracted that. That's what I'm getting at.
That's a fact.
That is my, for 2 weeks, for a week, that's what I've been arguing. And I'm convinced we're counting it twice. And this is a kid's money. I don't want that to happen.
So Bob, if I can interject here. So here's the mathematical sleight of hand. Intended or not, this is the mathematical sleight of hand. You subtracted $750,000 out of what the county commissioners gave us for Chromebooks. Then you're taking $1.1 million out of ESSER funds. That's what Bob is saying, is you're counting it twice. You took $750,000 out of the $4.1 million, so we got $750,000 for Chromebook refresh, grades 2 through 5, and then right there on the chart, you're taking another $1.1 million. That adds up to $1.8 million. That's Bob's point. So are the Chromebooks $750,000 or are they $1.8 million? Or if they're only $750,000, what are we really spending the 1.1 million on? Or is this just a mathematical error with no ill intent, as Bob's been maintaining for over a week?
Well, I certainly will admit if I've made a mathematical error and take responsibility for that.
Well, it's
I-
all right
but-
there.
But I don't have any ill intent by it.
I'm not, yeah, I mean,
But-
there's only like
Yeah.
3 options, choose one,
Yeah.
but.
No,
But what I
I'm
would-
gonna
but-
cut in here.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at anyone's ill intent. All I'm doing is just trying to say that I want to know how much money we have to do our priorities. And quite frankly, Dr. Locklear, that may not be your priorities. But we defer to your priorities because, you know, that's the reason why you get the big
Before we
money.
go-
you know?
Before we move on to that.
Let me try to
is
answer your
this a matter-
question, though.
So please explain why we're spending why we're reserving $1.8 million for Chromebooks. Because Charlie, if you scroll up just a little bit, you can see it all on one screen. You have $1.1 million coming out of ESSER funds for grade 2 and 4 Chromebooks, and then we just had a 15-minute discussion on how we took $750,000, $750,000 out of what the county gave us for Chromebooks. Double
The
counted.
1.1 is an outright purchase of a little under 3,000 devices. I don't have the exact number in
Yep,
front of me.
understand.
That's an outright purchase. The $330,000 is part of the commitment we have to current past lease purchases. Has nothing to do with the current recommendation to have an outright purchase. If I'm giving you wrong information about the net increase in the budget, I'll go back and correct myself on that.
Well, it's
With the
clearly-
$3.45 million.
It's clearly wrong, and it's clearly wrong between $440,000 or $750,000. It's wrong by one of those amounts.
Well, I tell you what, we probably need.
Actually,
Well,
it's wrong,
then-
actually, to time out, because the 1.1 million is actually the 750,000 plus the 330,000. So the 1.1 million is more than 750,000, so that must be the 750 plus the 330,000.
That's a totally separate funding source. We're talking, that's why the color coding might help some. That's a total separate funding source of the ESSER.
Okay, so how much are the Chromebooks?
Outright purchase would be 1.1 million.
So it's like we took the
But wait,
750 out, and it's just out there somewhere
Well, yeah.
if it's not applied.
So
Just
so
last
here's,
week-
I've
wait,
got
just-
an
Bob,
idea
hold
to
on, Bob,
solve
I
it.
got the floor. Just last
Yes, sir.
week, we were told that buying the Chromebooks was a $54,000 savings. It would be $750,000 less.
Let me
Now, it's
explain that again. If we did a lease purchase on these Chromebooks that we still never have done anything with, this is our grades 2 through 5 refresh. If we did a lease purchase, that would be a 4-year lease purchase. There'd be finance charge to it. That's where the $54,000 in savings comes in. We're recommending a outright purchase because we have this source of one-time funding. And that's why we were recommending to use ESSER funds for a one-time purchase of the Chromebooks. That, you know, we have the 4 years of use at least out of them. So that's where that was coming from. The ESSER is a total different source of funds. Obviously, I got to go back and do some more homework and make sure that I'm clear with the board and the board clearly understands what happened to that $750,000.
Well, you know what, I would-
But
I
even
would-
if, let's say that even it is part of a gross increase, you do have a $330,000 obligation already. So then you're looking at roughly $370,000, $360,000 that's available from that $750,000 increase when you think about the money that goes off the top to the charter
No,
school.
what you told us that $300,000 was coming from fund balance. But
That-
let me make
That
the
is my
following-
understanding up to
Right,
this
right, but
point.
so- so
And if
that's
I'm
off the
wrong,
charts.
I'll be
Okay.
glad to correct that.
But here's my suggestion. You take the 5.715, which we've already figured out, okay? And you add $750,000 to it, all right? Which gets us what, 6.4, something like that? 6.465, okay? 6 point, you know, what, 6, whatever, you add the $750,000 to the 5.715, which, and then you have your number there. And then you start with your Chromebooks and figure out, okay, what are the Chromebooks gonna cost us? Okay? And I'm not even talking about whether it's a lease or a purchase. That's kind of small potatoes or whatever. That's kind of a business decision. And then let's see what our net is after that if we decide to refresh the Chromebooks. Because what I need to know is if it's going to cost us more than $750,000 for the Chromebooks, and you've already said it's like 1.1 million, okay? Then I've got to take off some money from the 5.715. And I've got to know how much we have left so that we can do things like decompress salaries, maybe lower class size, I don't know, or maybe give out those stipends, I don't know. We got to figure out where the heck we are before we go somewhere else. That's just my consideration.
Any other questions or comments?
If I could try to attempt to say this in a different way,
Okay,
to present my recommendation in a little different way.
okay.
The increased funding from the county, increased recurring funding from the county overall, the net increase, when you added it all up, was $3.45 million. We came into this budget cycle now, as you can see, with over $4 million of increased base budget fixed cost requirements to pay for people. Those recurring costs. So we have $3.45 million to accomplish that. Now, if I'm wrong about the 750, add the 750 in, we still have 4.1 then to take care of fixed cost people needs.
Okay, then obviously, we can't afford to give an extra stipend to the teachers which we're not obligated to do to begin with. And I know
That
every
is a-
teacher's gonna get mad, but I'm also a little upset that the administration brought this to the board, because what happens when you do something like that, the teachers are gonna get all mad that they may not get their stipend.
Well, let me further explain the situation, Mr. Levy, you allow me.
Yeah.
So that's about, like we said, just say the 750 is counted in here, we still have those fixed cost people needs at almost $4.1 million. And so then if we look at the ESSER funds that are available, we have $2.3 million in that one-time funding source of ESSER funds that you can spend on certain things. Training's one of them, technology needs is one of them, and certainly supporting things like the virtual academy is one of them. And so that's why we brought.
How about an HVAC system for Pinckney Academy, which we decided not to give those poor kids from Pinckney Academy because we want to give the teachers a bonus.
Yes, sir.
Throw that in.
And there could be other ways to accomplish that. You're correct. But through that savings of the one-time funding, that's why the superintendent, brought you the recommendation that we use that one-time funding on those three things. Now, the board may feel like we want to use that one-time funding on something else, or we want to say, let's hold on a piece of that. That certainly is, and certainly respect the decision that the board may make on that. But was trying to lay this out in a way that the board would understand, here's what we're committed to paying for people this year, those fixed base budget costs. This is what the Board of Commissioners additional funding gives us, that allows us, it essentially almost takes care of all those needs, which we're very appreciative to them for. And then as we're looking at additional board priorities and additional needs that we have as a district, this is how I would recommend we spend the ESSER money. There may be a way to come back to look at what fund balance we have once we know from our audit exactly how much we have. We've been fortunate there. We'll have some fund balance over the $2 million we'll be able to use. But you obviously want to be very purposeful in that. So that's the purpose of this, to try to lay that out as clearly as I could. Obviously, I'm learning, and we'll continue to get better at how to do that. So I appreciate the feedback and the questions. Yes, sir.
I just have one. I know we're using the $750,000 like a budget for technology. And I know that, I don't know, some years we may have, didn't use all of the whole 750 that year. My question really is, was there any money available for next year from previous $750,000 that had not been used?
There was some, that was part of what was rolled into the total.
Okay, so that was included as part of our income.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Locklear, I have a question. Maybe it's for Kent. How often do we refresh the Chromebooks?
They go out of use roughly after 4 years, but can't, yes, confirming that, 4 years, yep.
Didn't we refreshed some last year, didn't we?
Not
We
2
did-
through 5.
We did 3.
We did refresh secondary level Chromebooks last year, didn't we, Kent?
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, what it appears is based on, Charlie, if you could slide up a bit, that where we are with regard to fixed cost, base budget, dollars that we know we have to spend on these particular items, if we go back to the top, each one of these line items, approved county budget, that ends up at 3.4 million. So those are dollars that we know that we have got to continue to set aside for these things that's included in base budget, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then if you go on down this column, then you get to capital outlay expansion, which is 50,000. So basically, what you're saying is that our fixed cost base budget is 3.450 million.
That was what was approved from the county. If you go to the next column, that shows the total commitment we have to our base budget. That's the 4.95 million. That's directly in the last column that shows the revised total base budget costs based on the revised state budget.
Okay, so the 4.50 million, 505, and then that would go back up and catch the digital lease, and it would include the Connect Academy that we have, and then what you're saying, the 80,000 that may be the ADM increase.
That would be the total that we've looked at committing so far. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What would that leave us with in the fund balance then?
We're estimating, we have a board resolution to keep a $2 million floor. Above that, based on what I've been advised, we're looking at somewhere around 2 million to a little over 2 million. Above that, we'd have fund balance available to assign to anything the board felt they wanted to.
So we still have the $2
So-
million in fund balance.
So finding more money here, I get 5.715 plus 750, which comes to 6.465, plus another 2 million, which comes to 8,465,000 for our priorities, because I guess I don't, and this is what the county commissioners get mad at us for. They get mad at us for leaving large amounts in our fund balance. We're obligated, if we've got stuff to do for our kids, we're obligated to use that money for our kids. And I want to use every single dime that the county of Moore gives us for our children. And I'm also a little bit concerned about one other thing, which does get me, and that I do have to point out, and it'll be a lesson for the next biennial budget. And that is that we ask the county commissioners for X amount of dollars. And then 2 days later, the state of North Carolina, or about a week later, a week later, passes a budget, which costs us, for instance, 4% more for our teachers. Now, I know that in those 4 days, the state of North Carolina did not write that budget, okay? And I know that we need to, that it is terrible the way the state of North Carolina makes us pass a budget and the county pass a budget before they pass a budget. That's crazy, all right? But in the next couple of years, we've got to anticipate what they're doing and go to the county and say, by the way, county, it's not the percentage of 21, 22 that we're having, but it looks like they're passing a budget of 4% more. So we need that additional 4% to pay for our teachers. That's just a recommendation for the next biennial budget.
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Levy. We're at a distinct disadvantage because of our timelines versus how the state does it.
No question
And,
about it, no question about it.
the board makes their recommendation in April, and the state sometimes don't even start working on their budget until after April. So it's very frustrating, so I appreciate your advocation for that.
I'm just trying to comprehend it all, but if I could just ask another question so I can process it in my little blonde brain here. So let's just say the 750 is not accounted for anything else. We're gonna add it back up to 4.15. If you look at that 4.15, basically it's gonna cover all of our expenses up on the top there, leaving a little bit of change, right? Because it's 4.95. So to me, that's kind of where I balanced it out. So now we're starting with, now we have our fund balance and our ESSER money we have to play with. Am I not correct on that?
That is correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Kind of figuring it out now.
And I believe, Ms. Caldwell, I'm getting 8.465 million, but I defer to you, and I defer to Mr. Hensley, who did better in math than I ever would.
Any other comments or questions? We are getting near to our hour, so any other comments or questions?
I was just trying to look up, that's what I've been trying to do, is look up where we passed the resolution to purchase the Chromebooks. And maybe Mr. Eklund can recollect. I went back and I found where there was in April to purchase 400, but I haven't subsequent. Do you know the month that was?
It was May.
It was May?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
May 2nd. Thank you.
Trying to
Thank you,
find
Mike.
it. Thank you.
Any
May
other?
2nd?
Would have been a business meeting where it was approved. Was that May 2nd, Mike, or May 9th? Yeah, May 9th. Then.
Any other comments, questions? May 9th was the board meeting, May 2nd was the work session, yeah. Okay, if no additional comments, questions, at this time, we will adjourn this portion of our work session, and then we would be able to take a few minutes for a break before we come back at 4. So if we want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back at 4.
Madam Chair, I move the meeting be adjourned.
Madam Chair, point of order. I believe it would be recessed, not adjourned.
Recess. Okay,
No, this is a special meeting.
Oh, okay, all
So we have
right,
to
then I
close
stand
this
corrected.
meeting.
That's
okay,
fine.
all right.
Time out, before we, I just, here's something that'll clarify something.
You want to hold that, because we're going to talk about this in our business meeting.
Yep.
Hold your points and your clarification, and we're going to go right back to this at our business meeting.
Got it?
Okay. So we had a motion. Did we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.